Late one night, I ended up driving through Fairfax County, Virginia, the kind of place that feels normal during the day but turns eerily hollow after sunset. And that was when I realized I was near the old Colchester Road Bridge, the one people around here whisper about but never actually. And I swear the air felt heavier, like the trees themselves were leaning in to warn me away. Still, curiosity won, so I parked and stepped out, telling myself it was just a story people exaggerated to scare teenagers. But the second my feet hit the gravel, I felt this strange prickle under my skin, like someone was watching me from somewhere just out of sight. And the worst part was how quiet everything was. No wind, no insects, no distant traffic, only the sound of my own shoes crunching as I walked toward the bridge and tried to convince myself I wasn't, hearing soft footsteps matching my pace. People say the legend started back in 1904 when an asylum transfer went horribly wrong and a handful of patients escaped into the nearby woods. And over the weeks following the breakout, authorities began finding the bodies of animals hanging from the trees around the old bridge, skinned and arranged in a way no normal mind would think to do. And they eventually blamed it on one of the missing inmates, a man named Marcus, or maybe Douglas, depending on which version. You hear someone who had a history of violent delusions and was obsessed with costumes, especially rabbit suits, but officials never confirmed they found him, which is why the story survived and twisted over the decades. Each version claiming he still roams the woods wearing that filthy white suit stained with dirt and something darker, always carrying the same rusted hatchet. I kept telling myself none of that mattered, that it was just folklore. But the deeper I walked under the bridge, the more wrong everything felt. The cold wasn't normal, not October night cold, but something sharper, almost metallic, like breathing in ice shavings. And that was when I noticed the thin strips of something dangling from the underside of the concrete. Ribbons maybe, or old cloth, until I got close enough to realize they weren't cloth at all but dried, curled remnants of fur. Each piece nailed in with a level of precision that made my stomach twist. The dragging sound grew louder, closer, and I could feel the vibrations of each movement through the solace of my shoes. I tried to call out, maybe to sound brave or sane, but the moment I opened my mouth, the air caught in my throat like something thick and icy wrapped around my vocal cords, silencing me. That's when I saw a sliver of white at the far end of the tunnel, not glowing but reflecting, like the belly of a costume suit catching the faintest bit of moonlight, leaking through the trees behind me. It didn't move at first, almost like it was waiting for me to acknowledge it, but once my eyes locked onto that pale shape, it stepped forward, slow and deliberate, revealing long ears drooping slightly to the side, the fabric torn around the seams as if something too large was struggling to fit into it. And though the face was a blank, dirty mask with no expression, no eyes, I couldn't shake the certainty that it was staring directly at me. I wanted to run, God. I wanted to run, but my legs refused. And the figure took another step, then another, each movement accompanied by that soft dragging sound. And I realized it wasn't the suit dragging, it was the hatchet, scraping lightly against the floor with every slow swing of its arm, as if it were savoring the sound. The moment it tilted its head at me, something inside finally snapped back to life, and I sprinted harder than I ever have, nearly tripping on the uneven ground as I barreled toward my car, fumbling with the door handle while the tapping now faster, sharper followed me into the open air. I threw myself inside, slammed the door, and hit the lock just as a heavy thud struck the back of the car, hard enough to make the whole frame jolt. I couldn't look, I just started the engine and tore down the road so fast the tires screeched, and only when I reached the main highway did I dare glance in the mirror. Nothing was there, at least nothing I could see, but all the way home, I kept noticing small white tufts stuck to the edges of my windows, drifting off into the night. And maybe it was exhaustion or adrenaline, or just my mind playing tricks, but later that night, as I lay in bed trying to convince myself I'd imagined everything, I heard it again, tap, tap, tap coming from the far corner of my room, even though every door and window was locked and I never saw anything. When I turned on the lights, But every morning since, I've found a single piece of white fur on the floor, always placed neatly, always waiting. As if he wants me to know the bunny? Man isn't tied to a bridge he follows. The scared one's home.